Dottie then asked me, "So what do you think?" "About what?" I asked stupidly. "About going into business with us?" Harriet said. "Boy's a bit slow." Genevieve kidded me and gave me a wink to show that she was joking. And then the thought of how I would explain all this to my parents hit me like a ton of bricks. "What's the matter?" Roxanne asked me. "Huh?" I grunted. "You look like you're going to be sick," she said, and I guess from her medical experience I must have really looked bad then. I can't," I stammered. "Well, why the hell not?" Genevieve growled. "My mom and dad. What would I tell them?" I said ashamedly. "They don't know anything about this. They'll think I am sick and lock me away in some asylum." Genevieve put one elbow on the table and leaned toward Dottie. "You know, strip away the wild imagination he's got, and I think he might just have a valid point there." Sharon then snapped her fingers. "I've got it. We make him a silent partner." "What? You mean duct tape him and hide him in the basement?" Genevieve said with a hiccup and a healthy belly laugh. I laughed too, albeit nervously. Sharon pushed her chair back and leaned forward. "I know his father and I'm not so sure he'd be too open-minded when it comes to something like this. However, how about, along with making him a partner, we also hire Max as a professional big brother?" And then Harriet added, "Just the way he does with the Damien boy." Dottie looked at me and asked, "What do you think?" But how will I have time for all of your kids?" I said, feeling overwhelmed. "You could take all the kids to the park on weekends for a couple hours," Roxanne suggested. "And maybe once every month or two, you could take them someplace special, like a water park or the zoo," Harriet offered. "You'd be freeing them up," Genevieve pointed out, motioning to the other ladies, "for a couple hours each week and making money at the same time." She picked up her drink and began to raise it to her lips. "Plus, your share of any profits from the diaper case. You can tell your parents that I thought you were doing such a wonderful thing with Damien that I wanted to hire you too, and then I introduced you to my friends as well," Dottie suggested. I thought for a moment and then said, "That could work." Genevieve pointed a finger at me. "That means you'll be changing diapers when you have the kids. No bringing back a poopy boy." I laughed, put my right hand over my heart and held up my other hand. "I promise." She made a dismissive huffing sound, shook her finger at me again and said, "You could use a little diaper training yourself, Mr. Smarty Pants." For half a second I thought she was serious, but then she smiled and all the ladies chuckled. I then leaned toward Genevieve and said, "Admit it, you just want to get me out of my pants." Wow! The laughter was so loud that everyone in the restaurant looked our way again. Even though I was the one to say it, I blushed, because I honestly hadn't thought before I said it. It just sort of came out of my mouth on its own. When the laughter had subsided, Genevieve gave me a reassuring wink of approval. "I have another idea to go along with hiring him," Roxanne added. "We should open an account for Max and put all of his profits from the company into that account. So he'll have that money for when he goes to college." Genevieve was really feeling her gin, and it was showing. She slammed her hand on the table as she announced, "And by God, you are going to college too, young man." "Yes, I said in a cute little voice, but I did mean it. "Do you have any idea what you want to study?" Roxanne asked me. "To be honest, I've been thinking about that quite a bit lately," I said, taking a sip of my water. "I think I would." I paused and looked around the table. Never before had I felt comfortable saying what I was about to say, but sitting there at that table with those women, I felt completely safe in saying, "I'd like to do something just like what all of you have suggested. Working with boys of all ages." I paused again as I looked each one of them in the eyes, that are in diapers. Dottie put an arm around me and hugged me. The other ladies, except for Genevieve, who was too drunk to get up, came over and each hugged me in turn. Finally, Genevieve said to me, "Boy, Max, come here." Partly reluctant for fear of getting groped again, I slowly eased myself to where she was still reclining. She grabbed at the front of my shirt, pulled me down and planted a wet, gin-laced kiss on my left cheek. "You are a good boy," she said, patting my opposite cheek hard enough to nearly scramble my brains. Her breath was so saturated with gin that it nearly pickled my eyeballs within their sockets. While Genevieve kept one arm wrapped around my middle, Dottie said to me, "And now for your surprise." Ah, I thought all this was the surprise. I said. No, the surprise is, she paused and looked at the other ladies who all shared knowing glances, we have already begun ordering the necessary materials for the diaper cases and production should begin next week. This morning, thanks to some pull from Genevieve bowed in royal fashion while still seated in her chair, we reached an agreement with the corporate headquarters for Kids R Us, Baby World and Walmart, to sell them. Your diaper cases will be on their shelves by early May. No way! I exclaimed, momentarily forgetting that we were in the Pine Club. I looked around at the women, who were all now looking guilty. You all knew I'd agree to this all along, didn't you? Genevieve grabbed my butt, however not like before, this time she was rubbing it in tiny circles. This time I didn't jump. I said it before, she began, and I'll say it again. Cute, sexy, and smart. And then she gave me a hard swat that felt almost as hard as when Dad used to spank me. She then goosed me, really hard, which did get me to yelp and jump. Genevieve, Dottie growled at her, stop groping our business partner. And Sharon quickly added, and babysitter. Don't forget that part too, she said, rubbing the back of my neck. When I got home, both Mom and Dad, as well as my brother and sister, were excitedly waiting to hear all about my evening. So, just like the ladies had proposed, I told them about the job offer to act as a big brother to their boys. To take them on outings and just hang out with them like I was already doing with Damien. And besides, Damien needs more friends to play with. I said, and Mom started to cry. Why are you crying? I asked her. I thought you would be proud that I am getting a really good job. I am, honey, she said, grabbing a tissue and dabbing at her eyes. I am just so proud of you. Dang little brother, my sister said, that sounds like a really sweet deal. I hope you aren't mad. I told her. Why would I be mad? She asked. Well, because you used to watch Damien and all. I said. Believe me, she said, rolling her eyes, I don't regret letting you take over babysitting that little monster. I think that was the first time I had ever heard her say that she had felt like that about Damien. My brother didn't have anything to say about the babysitting part. He just thought that it was cool, that I was working for such a rich clientele. I only have one condition. Dad started to say, but before he could continue, I said, my grades better not suffer. I mean, Mrs. Oric and the other ladies already said as a condition of me working for them, I have to keep a C average or better. Of course that was a bold-faced lie, they hadn't said anything of the sort. I'll do them one better, Dad said, you had better keep a B average or your butt is mine. A B average? I complained, isn't it good enough that I got a job? Now I have to be a nerd too. I said jokingly. Dad grabbed my elbow and pressed on one of the pressure points. It only took half a second for me to scream out, okay. I'll keep a B average. I know you'd see it my way, Dad said. Mom then added, and you better check with Damien's grandparents to make sure they are okay with Damien going along with you. Yeah, I thought about that too. I was going to call them as soon as I got home. I said, which was true, I had planned on doing just that. Of course, Bill and Gladys were overjoyed at the news and totally on board with Damien making more friends. When they put Damien on the phone and I told him about it, he didn't sound too happy about having to share me, until I whispered into the phone that he would get to play with more boys that wear diapers too. After that, he was all for it. Heck, he wanted to go play right away, but I told him that we'd have to wait until the weekend. Never in a million years would I have ever thought that something like this could happen in real life, let alone to someone like me. Daddy Max. That's what Mike calls me, and now I get to play daddy to a host of diaper-wearing boys. I can't wait to meet them all. Tilda the END, or is it Tilda?